All right, welcome. We are diving into part 8 of Becoming Your Own Banker, Nelson Nash's infamous book that we started going through for a while. And this has got, I'm going to give you a spoiler here. At the end of this little section, it has my favorite quote in this entire book is on this page right here. So I'm going to save that for the end. But Anthony, as you kind of started reading this section of the book, what kind of came to mind? What jumped out at you?
When he talks about at the beginning is that you need a desire to do the infinite banking concept. And one thing I always thought was interesting, but actually at the beginning it was frustrating. He doesn't really, because I'm a numbers guy, right? I want to know, all right, the details. How does this work? I want to see numbers. Nelson doesn't really present an illustration or numbers of the policy till page 45.
Yeah.
And of the actual contents of the book, not including the glossary and footnotes, it's 85 pages. So we're more than halfway through before he actually talks about the numbers. And at the beginning, I was frustrated, right? I want the bottom line. I want the action. But by practicing this over 10 years, one thing I realized that what's more important than the numbers is the concept of how and why this works. And I believe that that's why he put more than half of the book talking about mindset, talking about the human laws. And that's why, so we're in part 8. Is that where we're at?
Part 8, yep.
Part 8. If this is the first time you're doing it, continue to listen, right? And then you can go back and listen to the other one. So all of these chapters, for the most part, I think can stand amongst themselves. So to me, I guess that was a long-winded answer to your question, and I think it is desire, that we need to take action. We're at the point here, well, now we've learned how this works. Now it's time to do something about it.
I'm gonna give you a little pushback here.
Good.
Right? You and Nelson, is I think that we've got to have a little bit more than desire. To be honest, I think desire is kind of a soft word that is used in there. If it were me, the other word that kind of comes to mind is determination, right? Is we work with clients a lot, and I would think that I've seen that a lot of people that are in or not where they want to be, they have a desire to be somewhere else, right? They want to be more successful, but there's got to be some action. There's got to be kind of this determination. And when I think of determination, I think of like unwavering determination to get out of the situation that you're in. Desire to me is kind of soft. It's like, you know what? I think I'm hungry. I think I'll have a candy bar, right? No, that's not it, right? So there's a lot of times, I know you've had this experience where we work with we sit across from somebody and they tell us they want something to change. They tell us they want their finances to change, but there's no follow through. There's no action that kind of shows there. So that was the first thing that kind of jumped out at me when I reread this book.
Well, Kemba, let me push something back to you. Why do you think determination? And we're talking about a financial product and a strategy. You don't need determination to go into Merrill Lynch or a financial planner. So why do you need determination, or as Nelson says, desire, for this to work?
Really good point, is because as you read this strategy, is what we're doing is we are taking back control of our finances. And I say we, I'm including myself as a client in that, is because when we start working with somebody, it's not them coming in and me telling them, hey, give me your money and come back for it when you're 59. It's, hey, now you have control over your personal finances. Let me show you how to do that. And what are you going to go do with it? And so that's where the determination comes in, is you are actively engaged in this process. This is not a sit back and do nothing, right? This is, hey, this is going to succeed or fail, and it's going to be dependent upon you. And honestly, I think that's one of the things I identified with it first and foremost, and I think that that's why we work with who we work with, right, is typically business owners, entrepreneurs, something like that has that kind of drive.
Well done. What I would add on top of that is you're going to hear voices from your coworkers, your parents, or your peers. Like, hey, I'm maxing out my 401k, or look how the stock market's doing. They always share their home runs, right? Oh man, the market or my 401k, blah. I mean, they're only telling you the highlights, but you're going to get some information. Or even when you're looking online, when we encourage you to do your research, There's going to be some people that are bad-mouthing this concept, and they're bad-mouthing whole life insurance. But really, this concept and whole life insurance, I think, are completely different concepts. The life insurance is a product, and the infinite banking is a process. And the whole life has some negative connotations, and to be honest, I would say in some places that is deserved. There's a lot of people that are misrepresenting or misdesigning these policies, and a typical whole life policy typically is not the best answer to solve those problems. But the way it's designed with infinite banking, it's not a typical whole life policy. It's designed very different, and the use is very different. So you need that desire and determination to stop that head trash.
I totally agree.
And I think that goes into the next thing he talks about. Or did you want to say anything else?
Well, I was going to cut you off and just get us back into the book there. But
the next thing he talks about is the next step is you need to find an IBC coach. Notice he didn't say life insurance agent.
yeah.
He needed an IBC coach, somebody who not only can explain this to you, but to me, what I think is more important, somebody who is doing that themselves.
Totally agree.
In fact, I was on a call today, and this guy has done his research, and he goes, I want to see your policies. Perfect. I actually showed him a spreadsheet. Surprised, right? Were you surprised?
Of course you did.
Well, then there's a list of my policies. Here's my premiums. Here's my loans. You can see that I'm actually using the policy. So this infinite banking concept does work. And the biggest obstacle for it not to work, in addition to your desire, is working with somebody who doesn't fully understand that.
Yeah. Right. Kind of just piggyback on that is he's telling us to change our priorities. Right, that's the first thing that Nelson Nash tells us to do, and one of those being a coach, finding a coach, and then he also tells us to be patient. Right, so what we find a lot of times is clients come to us after they've heard about this concept, and they're at 10, right, from 0 on the scale of 0 to 10, is they are ready to go, and sometimes that we've got to pull back the reins on them. And we've got to kind of take baby steps and kind of have them get introduced to this process or the strategy just a little bit slower. So, take that in consideration as well.
I think it's kind of like when people, when they first get their Peloton or they first join the gym, they're like, oh, man, I am going to be ripped for the summer.
Yep.
I'm going to work out 7 days a week. I'm going to cut out carbs. But, they're going from not working out at all to working out 7 days a week, which they're setting themselves up for failure. And I've had clients like, man, this book is amazing. I want to do this. I want to direct, I want to save, I'm just going to use a round example, $30,000 a year into my policy. I'm like, great. How much are you saving now? Well, you know what? I'm not really saving anything now, but you're not going to be able to go from 0 to 30,000 overnight. Right. So sometimes, which I think is cool in our industry, we actually have to pull people back. Say, look, we'd love you to do 30, but we want to make sure that this works for you. So oftentimes I'll say, you know what? Let's do 15. Okay. And then let's practice with the balance. Put the 15 in the policy, put 15 in a savings account. And then after 6 months, let's readdress. If you were able to do the 30 every month, fantastic. Then we start another policy and we can dump the money that was in the savings account right in there, so we're not missing the beat. And that's why I think it's important that you have somebody who not only understands this, but is going to be able to coach you through. And one thing I thought was interesting, he used the word coach. Now, why do you think he says coach as opposed to advisor or agent?
I think he says coach kind of along the same terms of a mentor. Right. And the mentor coach is some of the best coaches that I've ever had in the sports that I've played is somebody that's been there and done that. And they are able to share with you, the mistakes that they've made. Right. And hopefully we can avoid those, but also the successes and also some of those fine little details that somebody that's not doing it is not aware of. Right? So some of the best coaches, man, I can think of one guy, Travis Baker. This guy was a stud. He was one football coach in college, and dude, this guy had fire. He had everything that came along with it, and he was just a phenomenal player and coach. And you know what? You want to be around guys like that, right?
Exactly. I often use the analogy of like us being a football coach and you being the quarterback. You know, we're going to practice and have some education, and then maybe the coach calls some plays, but the quarterback is the one has to execute it. And, you know, if they're at the line, the scrimmage, and the coach called a pass, but they see an opening for a run, well, they're going to switch and do a run. So it's kind of the same thing here. We're going to educate you on how this works and what you should do, but the bottom line, you're going to be the one in the game.
Yeah.
So the game is on your shoulders. Our goal is to educate you so you can make those sound financial decisions.
Sorry, I was going to jump in there. Man, I was thinking about of your conversation that you have, right? As I have a very similar one. Is what we're here to do is we're just here to create habits. We talk about this strategy all the time, and what I tell clients is the strategy is simple, but it's not easy. Right. And so when somebody does come in and we do get started, is we do walk them back a lot of the times and we say, hey, let's start small, because the first year or 2 years, all I want to create with you is really good habits. Right. Is, hey, we're not used to saving money in a policy. We're used to having it in a checking account. Right. Mm-hmm. So we got to get used to that. We got to get used to writing premiums to an insurance company annual or monthly. Right. And then the biggest thing is if we take loans, we got used to assigning value to that and paying that back on a monthly basis. So, right, it's not about the dollars. It's just about creating healthy habits, and that goes along the line of, you know, creating or finding a coach. So,
exactly. And so one of the questions would be is, well, how do you find the coach or a proper coach? We've created a video with the top 5 questions to ask an IBC agent before you start doing business with them. So we will go ahead and include that in the show notes.
Awesome. What's the second thing that Nelson kind of touches on is I've got kind of he talks about develop a regimen, and then the third point he says is to be in community with like-minded people. What are your thoughts there, Anthony?
Very important. I think that, you know, the old saying goes that you are the average of the top 5 people that you hang around with. So you need to be hanging around people that have similar goals. And one way to do that is we've actually created our online course, which has a ton of videos and additional resources. theinfinitewealthcourse.com. We will put a link in the show notes. Another way that I like to do it, I think is a great way, is the game Cash Flow by Robert Kiyosaki. And in case you haven't, hopefully you've heard about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And really kind of our philosophies, I believe, is a combination of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Nelson Nash's Becoming Your Own Banker. And we put those two together. Robert Kiyosaki made a game called Cash Flow. I would say it's kind of like a real-life version of Monopoly.
Okay.
Instead of buying hotels or building homes or hotels, here the goal to win is almost like the goal in life is your passive income to equal more than your expenses. And when you do that, at the first part of the game, you're in what's called the rat race. You're just going around collecting a paycheck, right? But during that time, you have the option to buy investments. And that's how you're going to create passive income. And I think what it really shows you to do is making those decisions to achieve financial freedom. Because what I think is interesting, particularly when I play with my kids, if you land on a spot that you have a kid, well, guess what? Your monthly expenses just shot up, right? And another thing that is interesting is if you pass the marker that says payday, if you don't tell the banker to get paid, you know what?
You don't get paid.
You don't get paid, right? And isn't that more in real life?
Yeah.
Right? But once your passive income is more than your expenses, then you get out of the rat race. And now what I think is interesting, the amount of the investment types you have are much sweeter than when you are in the rat race. And what's also cool, when you go around, it's time to get paid, you don't have to tell the banker, right? The banker's automatically going to pay you, just like your passive income. Those rent checks or those investment checks are going to come in. And what I think is a good example and why it's important to play this game is I'm working with a couple of my clients, and their kids are end of high school, early college, and they want to learn about money. So I've been working with them. I had them read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I had them play the cash flow game. And then I said, okay, I want you to play a couple times before our next meeting. And when they go, yeah, we played it a few times. I'm like, okay, who was the first one to get out of the rat race? And they got silent. They just looked at each other. And they said, nobody. And I go, what happened? You know, what was interesting, in the game, there's small deals and big deals. Obviously, small deals take a little bit of money. Big deals take more money. They were chasing the big deals. These small deals, like, that's too small. So my passive income goes up $300 a month. It's not worth it. They kept on passing. And you know what happened? Probably like a year went by in the time of the game. They're just passing on these opportunities, and their passive income is not getting zero. So I told them, well, either you're not playing long enough, right? Or you're being too much of a wussy. Right? Opportunity. And I said, look, this is a game. It's not like if you buy this bad investment, you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
Maybe you lose a game. I go, this is why it's a game. It is a game to practice. So kind of doing these things, I think, can kind of help you change that mindset, which is the most important part.
I love that. And I've got a confession. I've never actually played the game. And I was sitting here trying to think why, and I'm going to blame my kids, to be totally honest. No, my kids are young, 10, 8, and 6, and right, I just don't know if that game was ever kind of on our list, but I'm going to go get it. I'm going to bring it out. We're going to start playing it because the lessons that you were just talking about are extremely valuable. Right, and that's what Nelson goes in. He talks about next, right after he recommends the cash flow game, is he talks about the difference between price and value. Right, we live in a day and age where everybody knows the price of everything, but very few people understand the value of something. And the lessons that the kids are going to learn by playing that game are invaluable. Right, they're going to carry them. Hopefully, they learn those and carry them on to real life. So.
Well, I would say the first time I played was with both my kids, and I don't know how old they were. They were not too crazy about it, to be honest. Because then you're also doing a little bit of math because they want you to keep track of your balance sheet and so forth. But interesting thing is, once my son got out of the rat race, he loves playing the game, right? But this is kind of, so the first couple times were a little weird or a little just different. But it is harder maybe with kids or with more people. But the point isn't really to isn't to win the game. It's to learn the game. Yeah. So sometimes I tell people, why don't you just play as a team? Just have one player, because what you really need to look at is being able to make those decisions. When that card comes, is it a good deal? Is it a bad deal?
Yeah.
So I do appreciate your honesty here, which is cool.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, yeah. Okay, so what does Nelson talk about next?
Now he's getting to the end of this page, right? It's one section. It's capitalizing your system, and then implementation, right, is what it's called. And really, we're on the second half of page 65 in the bottom right. And now he's kind of getting into his last words on this subject. And essentially, to paraphrase Nelson, he says, "Do it now." Right? Don't procrastinate. Go take action. And so we see that, again, a lot with clients or potential clients that come in and start talking to us. Hey, I like this idea, but I want to do it when I have my credit cards paid off. I like this idea, but I want to do it when I start making more money, right? And you can always find something, right? But like Anthony was just talking about, is you got to take that first step to kind of start working towards some of those goals. Little wins are what we're all about. Is you got to keep making those, and those things tend to pile up, and that's what leads to success.
Yeah, I totally agree, and particularly when he talks about patience, Because you're going to see, if you look at an illustration, I always say there's a slow start.
Yeah.
That first couple of years, you're putting in $1 and you don't have access to $1. And then it takes a while for that, I say cash flow, meaning $1 in and your cash value increases by $1. And a lot of people get lost on those first couple of years, right? And if you're short-sighted, then don't even bother, right? Infinite banking is not a sprint. This is a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what analogy that I tell people, and I'm probably heard it on the podcast again, is that this is a marathon, right? And if you were going to run a marathon, and I said, look, if you follow my training program to a T, at the beginning of the race, you're going to be in last place. You're not going to catch up till maybe mile 7 or 8. But then each mile, your distance is going to be farther and farther ahead. So you may start in last place, but you're going to finish in first place. And a prime example of that is I just pulled my son's policy, and I think we're on our 10th year. Okay. And right now, in this next year, if he puts in his premiums $2,400, it's going to grow by $4,000 this year.
Nice.
Right? So in essence, he's putting in $1 and he's getting $1.60 back. Right? And then it only gets better when he's 30, he's putting in $1, it's growing by $2. And then 10 years longer, when he's 40, he puts in that same $1 and now it's increasing by $3. Like, these are designed to get more and more efficient every year. So that's one of the advantages of starting early, because you start that compounding today and each policy year is going to get better. So by waiting a year, you still have to go through the short periods at the beginning, but what you're really giving up is that last year, which is the best year. So there are some advantages to starting early. And just please don't get us wrong. We're not trying to push you to start too early, but there are some advantages to starting early. And whatever that number is, you need to be comfortable with, right? That number is always decided by the client. Our job is just really to explain how this works and why.
Totally agree. And to follow up with how it works and why is, I kind of alluded to this early on, but on this page 65 in the bottom right, I have probably quoted this statement I don't know how many times over the years, but it's my favorite in this entire book. It says, if you know what's happening, you'll know what to do, right? And at this point in the book, Nelson's covered a whole bunch of ideas. He's covered the human problems, right, which are really a whole bunch of things, right? I won't get into those. But then he also talked about the product and how that works. And at this point, you know what's happening. You know what to do. It's just about taking action at this point. And so the rest of the book that we're going to dive into later is really, how do we set these things up? What does it look like as far as implementation, and where are we going to find the money? And so that's what we're going to talk about next time, is where some people are putting their money and choosing to, and some of the pros and cons of that.
Yeah, one thing we did gloss over is that he talks about rereading the first sections of the book. Like, I know I don't know how many times I've read it. I just know it's like 3 times more than you. Okay. And every time I've read it, I always pick something else. And it's kind of like what you always tell me. Like, if you don't know, Cameron loves romance novels, right? And after one time he came in, he's, look, I've read this romance novel 3 times, and now I have such a better understanding of the difficulty that they were going through. So just like Cameron with those romance novels, the same thing with becoming your own banker. The more you reread, the more you're going to learn.
No comment on the romance novels. I don't know where that came from. But one thing Anthony doesn't know is that I read this book 4 times this week. So that puts me 1 up on him. So I've read this book 1 more time than Anthony has. So
I guess I know what I will be doing tonight. But hopefully, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. And again, if you want to learn more, check out our website and the infinitewealthcourse.com. We've got a ton of videos of how this works and ways to use this, whether it's real estate or to pay off debt, or we have some great videos there. So check that out and make it a fantastic day.
Take care. Thanks for listening.